Hi, and welcome to Module 4. Now in this module, we're going to learn about how do we go to market, meaning that how are we going to develop our revenue. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the business model canvas, the revenue box that is on there that we have in the bottom right-hand side of the business model canvas. So we've gone quite a way so far here today. We've had the introduction to our business plan workshop where we talked about what are some of the pitfalls of starting a business and what do you want to avoid. So by going through that module, we learn about why companies fail. And if we know why they fail, what can we do to overcome that so that we don't make those same mistakes? Then we learned a tool about business model canvas, how to actually sketch out your whole business concept on a single piece of paper to give you a bird's eye view of the business that you're trying to do. It also helps you identify which of the cells you have guesses at or hypotheses at versus those that you have validated. And so you're wondering, how did I validate those? Well, of course you remember that. We did it when we did customer discovery. Customer discovery is going out and talking to people, going out and talking to potential target market customers, finding out from them to validate those different cells going along the business model canvas. So going out and talking to your customers. Don't sit in your office, don't sit at a computer desk, don't sit in your cubicle and try to figure out the business model canvas. Go out and talk to people, talk to competitors, talk to potential customers, network with people, but get out there and find out and listen to what they have to say. Really remember that. That's so important. And then competitor analysis. And why do we look at competitor analysis? Is because we're trying to look to see, are there any other opportunities for us out there that somebody is currently missing that we can take advantage of, right? And so that's why we do the competitor analysis. So now we're going to drop down to the business model canvas to the revenue section. Going to market. Let's take our product and service to market. So revenue models. Revenue models are going to tell you how you are going to make money. It isn't a business unless you're making money, right? After that, it's a hobby or it's just an idea. But we want to turn this into a repeatable and scalable business, right? So revenue models, we want to start talking about looking into how will you make money? And we want to look at each customer segment, each target market to see whether or not that revenue model be the same or not. Normally, when we have different target markets, we'll have different revenue structures for each target market. So looking at your business model canvas, how many different target markets do you have at this point? Hopefully, by the time you get into to actually analyze the revenue models, you've already done the customer discovery segment to narrow down the target markets to those that actually will be the ones buying or purchasing from you. So what are the going out of business strategies? In other words, what are the common mistakes that many businesses do when they first start? If you think about your revenue model is pricing, it is not. Your revenue model is not the pricing. Revenue is what revenue streams are you going to have. Pricing is a part of that, but that is not the revenue stream. If we try to price our product or services based on your manufacturing costs or your acquisition costs of the materials, and you're doing price based on that, you're forgetting so much other things. There's more to running a business than just the cost of goods sold. We have operating costs and other costs that are going along with our business. So you don't want to do that. And another one you don't want to do is prices less than competitors. Your competitor has been running out there for quite a while. And if you try to underprice them, many times what will happen is that they've been in business for so long that they can drop their prices for a while and keep you from ever entering the market, forcing you out of the market and not them, because they have an established base. with their customers. So don't do that. But these are common mistakes that people, entrepreneurs, potential entrepreneurs, and startups make when they're trying to start their business. Don't do these. Follow these other steps instead. So what's my revenue model stream going to be? What strategy are you going to want to use to help you define what you want to price your product at? And how are you going to generate cash? What are the different revenue model streams? So how are we going to get cash from each of the different target market segments? So we want to break it down and we want to identify it, each one at a time. And within the revenue model, then we can talk about how to price the product and or service that we're offering. Pricing is a tactic used to set the price of each customer segment. And the pricing that we do for each customer segment may not be the same procedure or strategy that we're going to have for every other one. It really depends on our target market and how they perceive what the pricing needs to be for that product or market. So what questions do we need to ask when we're working on a revenue model and we're trying to go to market with our products and services? Well, one thing that comes up right here, which is so important, and goes back to our customer discovery, cannot emphasize enough. What value is my customer willing to pay for? What value is my customer willing to pay for? Going back to that customer discovery discussion that we had earlier today, value is everything. Customers buy things because it provides them value, that it solves a problem that they have. How important that problem is will depend on how much value that is to them and how much they're willing to pay. So let's look to see what that is. We're looking at our target market. That's why it's so important we talk about that value proposition there on the business model canvas. That value is so important because it's going to help us decide how we might be doing our pricing. What is the capacity do my customers have to pay? What is their discretionary income that they have available to pay? What is this money that they're going to pay to me for my product or service? Is that taken away from their rent money? I hope not. But if it is, you need to understand where this fits within your customers, your target markets, in their budgets. How does this expense of giving you money for your product or service fit within their overall budgets? So understanding your customers' budgets is very important. What exactly do they currently pay for similar products? So we're looking at our competitor analysis. Remember we did that before. We did the competitor analysis. We just got through with the competitor analysis, right? It was our last module that we did. So looking at that, what pricing structures, what revenue streams do our competitors have? What are the target market? What are they used to pay? What revenue streams are they used to looking at? And just because they've been used to doing something a particular way does not mean we can't think outside the box and come up with a different revenue model, because that might be the issue that we have discovered when we're doing our competitor analysis. And lastly, we want to see how do they pay. And during the pandemic, that's really changed a lot, right? A lot of it is online versus with cash. So we've seen a major shift there. People not wanting to use cash anymore, but they want to use credit card. Do they want to pay with a purchase order? Do they want to pay? How do they pay? So we really need to look at how they're used to paying and how are they capable of paying. So there are two basic pricing tactics that we can look at. There's cost-based and there's value-based. So you know which one I'm going to be pushing for, right? Value-based. But let's talk about cost-based because that is a common form of pricing within businesses. And what we normally do with cost-based, we look at the cost it is to us to get something, plus then we add a markup for the convenience of somebody buying it from us. So it's driven by our internal economics and not the customer insight. So we're not thinking at all about those other things we were just talking about when we were talking about what is our customer capable of paying? What have they all been paying in the past? Things of that sort. So it's very important when we're looking at cost-based, is that the way our customers are used to paying for that product or service? Cost plus a markup. This is something that is done in some industries. For instance, in the home building industry, it's not unusual that it's cost plus a markup when you're building your home. If you're building a new home, you pay for all the materials plus the markup for all the labor and overhead above that. So it's typical then in industry. So if it's typical in your industry, that's great. But if it isn't, let's go down and look at this next one, a pricing strategy, which is the value-based. Value-based. And majority, hate to generalize because I've been telling you not to do that, but most of the time we're going to see that value-based is where we want to be. It's based on that buyer's perception of value. What value do they get from using our product and service? Do they save time? Is it new efficiencies that are created? What is it? Is it safer for them in order to do something else? What is the hair burning fire problem that we're solving? Or is it just a vitamin, which we call a vitamin, that we're just trying to improve something? So we have to look to see what the perceived value is of getting better or getting rid of their headache. How much are you willing to pay for that solution at that time? Customers, when you ask them, they're not going to tell you, you know, I want to pay this much money because this is the value I get. They may not realize that that's how they do make those decisions, that they're not thinking about the value that they're getting, and they might use other terms to talk about it. They might talk about, oh, well, I went to a restaurant, for example, and oh, the service was really bad, so I don't want to go back there. So they don't perceive that the price they paid was too high necessarily. It was that the customer service was bad. But we pay a price for a certain level of customer service. So if that price they're paying for that customer service level is not matched within what their perception of it, then yes, they're going to say other things. So what I'm trying, hopefully I'm making this point, I hope. So you are getting it, okay. But you know, that it's just that customers may not realize that that's why they don't like paying that amount of money. If they pay that much money, then they want to have a certain level, higher level of quality of food, quality of service. But instead of them saying, well, yeah, I didn't get the value that I wanted for my money, they don't realize that that's really what they're saying. And that's okay. It is not our job to educate them. It is our job to listen to it and to interpret that to help us in doing our business. So let's go over a few examples here. These are different examples of different types of revenue streams that we can have. We have an asset sale. If you buy a car, right? Ford Motor. Go to Walmart. We buy an asset to a physical product. We buy it without anything else. Now, when we talk about automobiles, we might talk about other things after the sale, right? Then we might have, we're talking about revenue streams, like for the Ford dealership. They're also going to have servicing. They might have leasing. They might have other things that they do as different revenue streams. But in terms of the actual physical vehicle itself, it's just an asset sale. We're buying that vehicle. We're not in any obligation to come to their service area unless they give us an incentive to do so. You know, if we get free oil change, then yeah, we're going to take our car there because, well, maybe if if we're in the location, all that kind of other stuff, we might be more apt to go there to get our services because of that, to get the car service, to get the oil changes and things of that sort. So that is just an example of the revenue model, of the pricing example. It is the asset based. Then we have licensing. It's a fee for some set of some IP, which would be some type of software or something. So like in Microsoft Teams, we might, at the University of Texas State, we use Microsoft Teams for the university. So the university has a license for X number of people that can be on Microsoft 365. So we might do something like that where we're giving a licensing fee. And then there's a usage fee, which we're probably used to doing. How much have we used? Like in our Verizon Wireless, like how many phones do we have on there? How much data did we use? Things of that sort. And then there's subscription fees that you're probably familiar with, like with your Netflix, with the Amazon, FedEx, how much are we using it, how much weight, how often, things of that sort. So there's different revenue models and examples that we can use here of different ways. And don't forget, there's also like the freemium. We go and we get like an app for free for a while, but we might have to do the commercials or the ads that are in the app. And for us to get out of it, we're willing to pay a price each month so that we don't get those other ads. So the person, the app builder, they're either making money from you or from the advertisers that are advertising on their app, right? So those are two different revenue streams that they have. So they might want to have that steady stream of you using that app, because that way it's consistent. We know that we're going to have it. Where the advertisers, that it's going to be changed. They have to go out there. They have to have the sales team go out and look for those different people to advertise within your app. So those are different types of ones that we can have. So pricing tactics. So let's talk about different types of pricing tactics here now. Static pricing. Here's some different examples of static pricing, as you can see here on our screen. Cost plus markup. That is do something like in development contracts, what we talked before, like in the housing industry, we might see something like that. Volume pricing. If you buy a very large amount of a particular item, which we see in semiconductors, into plastics, and we even see it like sometimes in the grocery store, right? Volume, if we buy above a certain quantity, we get it at a lower price per unit. A value that sometimes we think about is like with the iPhone and lawyers. Now these are more static that because it's based on the prestige of that. And I want to emphasize here that just because value is only used for iPhone and lawyers, it doesn't mean it can't be used with some of these other industries or other products, because we've got to think about that as well. So iPhone, we pay more for it than we would say an Android, because the iPhone has a perception is having a higher value. Lawyers, because they've gone to school, there's the perception that we would pay them more. The more experienced they are, the higher the fee that they're going to be charging. We might look at competitive, for instance, the example here is hearing aids. In that case, we're looking at, because there's such a need for it, that people are willing to shop for the price of hearing aids because they may not see the difference between the different vendors of hearing aids. So they will look for something competitive. If they don't see, if the consumer does not see that there is any value in the brand and that the item that they're buying is pretty much consistent among all the brands that are being offered, then yes, they're going to go to a competitive pricing structure in terms of how much they're willing to pay. And then we might have equipment and or disposal pricing tactics. So you buy a razor, and then if you want to dispose of it, you pay another fee to dispose of it. So we have that like with water bottles as well, like the 5-gallon water bottles that you might get at a grocery store. Dynamic is another set here that we have. There are certain cases, and for certain businesses, everything's done by negotiation, right? We might negotiate with them about a price they're willing to pay. And that happens a lot, sometimes a lot. This happens sometimes with services. For instance, this is a great example, my poor brother. But my brother, he after we had the snowstorm here in Central Texas, he lost a lot of plants in his yard and some trees. And so he called a guy that had been out to his house at one time several years ago to trim down some trees. When he came several years ago, he had trucks that were pretty old and beat up and charged a really reasonable amount. And so that's why he thought, well, I'm going to call this guy up again. Well, this guy comes out, and this time he has a brand new truck. It's a beautiful truck. And he's going, I think this guy's doing a whole lot better than he did back when he first came to see me. And he gave me, so he asked him for an estimate. And he was like, oh, whoa, that's way, he was like, that's way a lot more than I wanted to spend. And so the guy goes, well, how much are you willing to spend? And so my brother said, I'm willing to spend $500 and I'll do your social media for you. And the contractor said, sold. So yes, there are times you can negotiate, because the contractor was getting what he really wanted. He was getting the job of removing my brother's trees that had died from the ice storm. But then the contractor was also getting value too from the social media assistance. Yield management. Now, this is something that happens with airlines and hotel rooms. And I think we're familiar with it. You just haven't heard these terms before. Yield management, when we talk about it. Like for airlines, they will give you a lower price the further away from when you fly, because we have all these seats available to sell. And so we're willing to offer them to our consumers at a lower price because we can lock you in and we can get those people in those seats. Well, as you get closer to the time of the travel, and if those seats haven't increased in terms of sales, you might see the price drop because they need to get those people on the plane in order to pay for the cost of taking people from one location to another. Or if the plane is starting to fill up and they see there's a higher demand for that particular flight from that city to another city, then what they'll do is they'll raise the price because they see the demand. And then that way it will push people then to other flights, maybe at different times of the day that have lower demand. So yield management is a way that the airlines are using, trying to fill their airplanes, like say for a particular day, going to a particular destination. So they might want to charge higher for the more popular times and less for the less popular times in order to increase the demand in the less popular times and away from the more popular times. And the same thing with hotel rooms. If they're not very booked, they're going to be dropping those prices because they have a lot of capacity. They have empty rooms that they need to fill because they still have overhead, right? They still have electricity, utilities, they still have staff, they still have other things that they have to pay for, regardless if a room is rented or not. So if we don't have any rooms rented, then yes, we're willing to go down on that price to try to get people in there. And then as the capacity increases, that we have more volume, more people getting hotel rooms, then we're going to see the price start going up. Then we have something called real-time markets that it fluctuates during the day like a stock market does. And then we have auctions, right? Because you just never know what's going to happen at an auction. And they're fun to go to. If you haven't been to one, you got to go to them because they're a lot of fun. So in summary, revenue model is a strategy. How you price, how you get your revenue streams for your business should be a very strategic decision. Really think about how it fits within your brand, how it fits within your business, and how it fits within what you want to accomplish for your business. How do you want to be viewed? And that's why you want to set up your revenue model. If you want to be viewed as a luxury item, make sure the value that you're given is a luxury item and that revenue model reflects that it's a luxury item. So pricing is a tactic. Make sure value pricing is preferred unless your specific industry, it is something different. If not, look for the value pricing. What value are you providing for your clients? Are you solving the problem, that the hair on fire problem? The more you're solving that problem that they can't find another solution for, the higher that they're willing to pay to solve that problem. So in doing your customer discovery, we were talking about this earlier when we were doing the business model canvas and the customer discovery about how important it is that you go out and validate all of your guesses or your theses or your hypotheses that you have about the different blocks on the business model canvas. So here are some ways of helping you do your interview questions in order to get that revenue box answered for you. So when you go out and you talk with a particular target market, you might ask them what kind, if they do on the problem, when you're asking them about this particular problem, is this problem something that you would fall under your discretionary budget? Where does this fall in terms of the hierarchy of your budget that you pay for? And a lot of these might be more business to business, but they can also be business to consumer type of situations as well. Purchasing cycle, how often do they have this particular problem? Is this problem seasonality? Is it tied to a time of year? Is it tied to a particular event occurring during a year? For instance, a purchase cycle seasonality to a time of year would be like chocolates or near Valentine's Day, right? We normally have chocolates there. Or is it tied to a premiere of a movie pre-pandemic? Remember those? Going to a premiere of a movie? Yes. Market pricing tactics. Ask them, how do they do their pricing when they're thinking about buying a particular product to solve a particular problem? Do they look at it as a cost or value based? What kind of revenue streams are they do they see as important for them? What are the pain points with pricing and the significance of that? Ask the target market as you're talking with them for market estimates or rates, or the percentage of the budget, if you're struggling to get a dollar amount of what they'd be willing to pay for that solution. And again, as a reminder, we don't want to so much ask them what they're willing to pay, because they're always going to downplay it. Ask them what they have paid in the past for the solution to their problem, because past behavior is more indicative of what they think they might do in the future. So remember, that was a hint we talked about during the customer discovery segment. So keep that in mind. We want to ask them, how much money did you spend to solve that problem in the past? Okay, and thank you so much. If you have any questions about revenue streams, please don't hesitate to let me know.